hoopinhoops.com. The 21-22 NBA season is finally here, and it kicked off with two good games. The Milwaukee Bucks played the Brooklyn Nets, and the Los Angeles Lakers played the Golden State Warriors. I do not think either of those two games is a good indication of what you really should expect throughout the season, or it simply doesn't tell you too much. For the Nets Bucks, we know the situation with Kyrie, and we don't know if the Nets will be getting him back somewhere in the season. Many things may change. Um, you know, if Kyrie comes back, you have an entirely uh, different look for the Nets, or I should say, a more potent look for the Nets. But in general, as with all teams, this is the first game, and there are things they need to figure out. We saw Drew Holiday hurt his heel um, early in the game. Bobby Portis was out. So it will take some time to fully gauge what to expect from both of those two teams. What is known, even before the season officially started, is that both the Nets and the Bucks are going to be at the top of the Eastern Conference. For the Warriors Lakers, the reasons are similar. The Warriors were missing a key piece in Klay Thompson. The Lakers also had some players out, but mostly they will need to figure out their lineup and style of play. We saw in game one, Russ was horrible. If we look at what we saw in the games themselves, first with Brooklyn and Milwaukee, the Bucks more or less controlled the game the entire night. After getting their rings, um, you know, they more or less led. I don't want to say wire to wire because there was a couple lead changes, but you know they I would say they were in control of how the game went. I could imagine KD, James Harden, and the crew how they felt seeing the Bucks get that championship ring, especially after missing to go to the NBA Finals by a toe. Anyway, back to the game. The Bucks created a lead of about 14, 15, you know, early in the first half, somewhere in the second half. But near the end of the half, and in fact going into the half, the Nets closed the lead. In the second half, we saw the Bucks open up the game, and of course we knew the final score. They won by 20 plus points. I'm not sure the reason why the Nets did not play Bruce Brown, who was pivotal for the Nets last year. James Harden also had an off night. So you don't, expect the Nets to have a lot of games like what they did in the first game. I found the Lakers Warriors game to be the more interesting of the two. If we first take a look at the game, we got to see the young pieces the Warriors added to complement the veterans. Golden State won the game despite Curry having an off shooting night. He shot 5 for 21. Of course, the other persons made up for it. They won the game by 7 points and scored 121 points. The Warriors will be a dangerous team. They should get better when Clay arrives, but I'm a little cautious on how much better they will be because I want to see when Clay comes back, you know, how he's going to go out there and play. He's been down twice since that injury. And, is he going to simply go out there and lay it all on the court? or is he going to be, careful? He also have to get some rust off. After all NBA players are not Kevin Durant. The Lakers, um, on the other hand, they led throughout the first half, at least for most of the first half, and went into the half time by about by 6 points. I will have to go back and see exactly. It was about 6 or 5. Um, in the early second half, I think Jordan Poole was the spark for the Warriors. He played pretty good in the preseason, and it seemed to have carried over into the regular season. The game for the Lakers was kind of like how their preseason games went. In the fourth quarter, somewhere around midway in that quarter, you know, they seemed to be losing the game. And that uh, that was the same theme that happened. I already said Russ had a horrible game. LeBron and AD both scored in their 30s, but everyone else had single digits. You know, I'm fairly certain the Lakers, you know, especially with that being their first game, you will see a completely different team by the All Star break or somewhere close to the end of the season. They have to work on their defense, which, you know, was glaring in that game 1, and they will figure it out. Frank Vogel is a defensive coach, so he'll have them working on that. Um, the one thing person seems to be speaking about is, you know, Russell Westbrook's shooting. It's an issue. I say it's only an issue depending on the lineup they put out there, but it's something they will figure out. And as the season progresses, you know, you will see how this thing works itself. Overall, not a bad way for the NBA to start the season. But I'm not interested in the first game, and it's you know it doesn't tell too much. After about 10 games under the belt, something around there, then I will say, okay, you know what, it has some more meaning. Hoopinhoops.com.